Great. Welcome, everyone. This is Michelle Rich with the Iowa After School Alliance. Thank you all for joining us here today. This is a special webinar. Instead of our regular best practices, today we're going to be talking about what's new in the FY20 RFA. So I'm joined here today by Crystal Hall. A lot of you grantees will recognize her as being with Cedar Rapids area, Tanager Place, and Young Parents Network grant. She has joined the Iowa After School Alliance and is working closely with Vic and myself and other members of our team here to further support you all as the 21st Century Network here in Iowa. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
And of course, we have Vic Jaras of the Iowa Department of Education with us today, who will be leading this conversation. I want to recommend you asking questions at any time during this session. Vic is, I'm sure, open to that as we go along. We will be monitoring the chat box. So if you want to put your questions in there at any time, we'll monitor that and ask those throughout. Or feel free to unmute your phone line or your computer line and ask questions of Vic as he comes to some natural pauses in what he's going to discuss today. So I'll hand it over to Vic. We have a few new things this year in the RFA, and he wanted to be sure that those were clarified and you had the chance to ask your questions. So thank you, Vic, for being here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. This is not going to be the technical assistance. This is going to be just talking about what's new. We had a lot of changes because of ESSA, and we had to incorporate that. So I wanted to make that available to you guys before we started our technical assistance. So this is going to be recorded, and the PowerPoint will be available. And we've got a couple of new spreadsheets coming out. If you got your grant agreement, you'll see the spreadsheet looks a little bit different. So all of these changes could be overwhelming, but we're going to have to move forward with this. Let me also say that this fall, when you make your first claims in November, you're going to be doing it in a new system. All of the school districts are in this new system called CASA. So if you're a school district, you've already done CASA. What I don't know if they're for the community groups, if they're going to be able to be put in CASA or if they're going to be in iowagrants.gov. So I'm not sure about that. They're going to let me know in a couple of weeks. But no matter what your entity is, we're going to be doing claims online. So you'll be uploading your spreadsheet and your general ledger into an online system. And I think that's good moving forward that we're doing this. Okay, let's get started with this. Okay, first off, exciting news. More points are available. We've upped the grant to 119 points, and that's because we added a page to address family engagement. So you can now get, for that section in the project portion of the application, you can now get 24 points. And then plus the following bonus points are available if you're a comprehensive or targeted school jointly submitting with a community partner. For a Title I school, you can get 5 bonus points there. If you live in a county with child poverty over 18%, you can get 5 bonus points. Or if you're a rural district, and that's defined by the census in the application, you can also get another 5 bonus points. Also, in the past we had the Iowa School Report Card. That's been replaced. like I said, a lot of changes. And we've got the new URL is in the application, and this is what it looks like. And the designations have changed. It's comprehensive now replaces priority, and targeted replaces the needs improvement designation. So it's important considerations. This new system actually gives us a lot more information, and it's focused on the growth that a child makes. And so I'm very happy that we're moving into this new way of looking at kids and their academic improvement rather than just test scores. Okay, to receive those 5 bonus points for school status of comprehensive or targeted, that's going to be in the new performance system. So you're going to have to look that up online for the schools you want to apply for. If your school is doing just fine, you're not going to be able to get those 5 bonus points. Now, you also have to have a jointly submitted collaboration with a community partner. So, you can't just say, "Oh, yeah, I've got a Title I school that's comprehensive or targeted." You have to have that and a partner, community partner, because that'll increase your chances of providing additional remediation for those children, and we want you to succeed. We've added some stuff in the rubric, and one of the things that the ESSA did was it changed it was something about effectiveness, but it wasn't a measure, and so they changed it from I think a profile of effectiveness to an actual measure. And throughout the ESSA, they're requiring states to gather data on the grantees and your performance moving forward. So we've added this into our rubric, and all of the changes we've been making are aligned to the federal statute and the ESSA. And notice on the very bottom of this slide, it says that eligibility is based on an entity's performance during the preceding subgrant period, which means kind of like with our evaluation, we're always looking at what you did in the past year. Okay, and here's the rubric for the family engagement. This year we came up with guidance for family engagement. So there's now a guide to help you have a more successful family engagement. And now we've got that embedded in our application with a rubric. And our goal is to promote better relations with the parents. And I know that's hard sometimes with the parents working, and some of them are working more than one job, but they'll still come out if they know that they're going to see what their children are doing, rather than just a general informational meeting. So if you refer to that guide on family engagement, there's a lot of great ideas in there to help you have a successful meeting. And also, too, be careful when you're submitting your claims, because I'm looking at expenditures for family engagement. I don't want to see 0 in there, because I assume then you didn't have a meeting. So for 3 months, you should have at least one family engagement meeting. So we now have some questions in the RFA, and this is for previous grantees, because if you've never had the funding before, we would not be in compliance, because it's during the past periods according to the ESSA. So we've asked just a few questions of everyone, and this is going to be provided, this information, to our peer reviewers. So hopefully they'll get a better sense of the programs that that are really doing a good job, and they should get higher scores as a result. And let's take a look. The first question is, have you ever been in non-compliance in the past 3 years? That's an easy one, because in Iowa, just about everybody's following the rules. We only have a couple. Did you meet your attendance goals for the past 2 years? And we've got that data. Provide your last enrollment numbers and your average daily attendance for that time period. So, hopefully you're keeping records, and your records will match ours. Did you meet your academic goals for the past 2 years? And on your evaluation goals, did you meet those for the past 2 years? How much did you meet? Did you meet them all? And we've got a different range. And some of you will remember for the last couple years, during evaluation time, as we're reading through there, I would be communicating with you and say, hey, your goals, you're not meeting a lot of your goals, or your measures seem like they're a little bit higher than what would be reasonable for working with at-risk children. And we've had conversations, and we've been allowing people to alter those things to make them reasonable and measurable. So this is kind of the culmination of what we've been working on for the last couple years. And then the last one is actually, I believe, going to be incorporated into the APR data system, asking about office referrals. That's hard data that every principal has in a building. They're keeping track, because you have a student information system. They have that data, and I think that's one piece of data that will replace the teacher survey in the future. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's coming. So we've had some national conversations on this. And some more questions. Asking, are you providing the snack? And have you exceeded the snack requirement? We've got a lot of our folks that are feeding kids a full meal. So if you are, this is a chance for you to put that in. Because sometimes, I read a grant narrative, and I know people are feeding kids a full meal, and they didn't put it in their narrative. And I know you're probably going to not get the maximum points. Asking about field trips and asking about your community partners. We've grown. We've got over 700 community partners, which is more than any other state doing the 21st century. And that is one way of making your program better, because the community partners bring in skills and expertise, sometimes funding into the program to help you do a lot more than you could do without them. And we're serving thousands more kids now because of those partnerships. This is another one here. This is actually from your contract. Have you participated in the required committee work? And then have you attended the required professional developments in the last year? So, we've got that online attendance sheet, and we're going to be spending a little more time going over these questions before we give them to reviewers. So check your answers to these questions. And this is something we put in the application because the Office of Inspector General doesn't take a good view of false information in a grant application. So we want you to double check that. And if you don't know the answer to a question, you may want to check with us and say, hey, what have you got? Because we've got all that data for the past few years on attending the PD and the meetings and things. So we're happy to help you have the correct answer. Okay, and now let's go into some detail. Here you can see the code citations for this question about the non-compliance. And I actually have a Word document where all these questions have code behind it. And last year they passed a law, the legislators, that the DE, we need to be providing code for when we're asking you for information and things like that. But everything we do in this program is driven by code. So in the past, we didn't have to provide it, and so I was trying to just keep everything as concise as possible. But now we're going to show you where the code is, and just so there's no doubt. Okay, and then asking about attendance. That's also required of states in the ESSA. That is why we now been asking every time you submit your claim spreadsheet that you update us on attendance. Because that should be on your radar. You know, if you're not meeting your attendance goals, there's a problem, and you should communicate with me to say, hey Vic, our attendance is going down, can you help me? I mean, that's your responsibility. If you go a whole year and I see that those numbers are going down and down, for the next year, your reward can be reduced. And that's one of the things that the feds want me to do. I would rather help you before it gets to that point and get those numbers up so that you don't lose any funding. Okay, local evaluation goals. And so here is the code citations for those evaluation goals, and also the local evaluation is now part of your comprehensive evaluation because of the use of results that we're required now to take that into consideration. It's not the only criteria, but it certainly is a factor now that wasn't in the past. But your local evaluations, for the most part, have really improved since you've been doing this, and you know, that's a credit to you out in the field and to your local evaluators, working with them. So that's a good thing. Oh, ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act.
And Billy, it took the place of No Child Left Behind. So we all know No Child Left Behind, but this is the new federal legislation.
Yep. And you know, when No Child Left Behind came out there, you know, I was one of the people that asked the difficult question of, you know, this doesn't make any sense because they're asking for 100% of the kids to succeed in everything. Now, with this Every Student Succeeds Act, you're not required to have 100% on any of those measures. They're more moving towards growth, because a lot of times what happens is a child will have a lot of growth that shows they're really working hard, but they still haven't made the proficiency. And we're now moving into trying to capture that, because that really tells the story of a child's improvement. Not just if they scored proficient on a test, but overall improvement. I mean, a kid can be 3 grade levels behind and they move up 2 grade levels in a single year, and yet they're still not proficient. But with growth, we can capture that. And one of the things that, you know, I advocate is that we make our measures reasonable for at-risk children. So we've got kids in the program that have a history of chronic absenteeism and being behind in their schoolwork, especially in reading. That's critical that we need to address it. But I don't advocate anyone to have 100% of kids will be completing their reading and math. I think a reasonable measure is greater than 50%. Now you can do better than that, and you've exceeded your goals. But a lot of times it just depends on the group of kids you have, and some groups are going to be easier to work with than others. I mean, we're dealing with kids with language barriers. Sometimes there's social and emotional things going on at home that militate against their learning. And we only have them for, a couple hours a day. So we want to make sure that we have reasonable measures for the time that we're working with the kids.
Vic, we have another question from Amanda.
Okay.
In the first year of their grant, do they need to answer the past grantee questions?
Well, if they've done it for a year and they're going to apply, then yeah, they would have that information for the past year.
Mm-hmm. But one thing to keep in mind is that we are, with these new questions, the internal vetting that happens before the applications and review forms get to reviewers is going to be more intensive. So usually how that works is Vic, myself, Brittany last year, Crystal maybe this year, in addition to Brittany, sit down and go through how you formatted the application, all those details that we track on, your free and reduced price lunch numbers to make sure that yes, you are truly eligible. And then this year we add all of these questions to vet before it goes to reviewers. So we will certainly let reviewers know at what year you're at in your grant.
We have another question from Jesse for the last enrollment in ADA number. Is that for the entire previous year or for a certain time frame?
Well, if you look at those boxes, there's for the past 3 years, there's 3 boxes in there. So we want to have the ADA, which is the average daily attendance number for the year. So we ask that you report it by quarter, so you can take your claim spreadsheets and aggregate that to a yearly number. Now, keep in mind, if you look at the site visit documents, these questions are aligned with those site visit documents. So it's not, this isn't coming out of the blue.
Okay. Next question is from Billy. Since you are adding questions, do we omit any questions?
Well, those should be answerable by every program. There shouldn't be anything without an answer.
So, Billy, we did not omit anything. So you should make sure to answer all the questions that it prompts you to. And if you have questions as you go through your application, Vic or the Iowa After School Alliance is available to help you through that.
Okay, next question from Jenna and Abby. In the case of VTBs, they have multiple cohorts. Do they answer just for the school they're applying for or for the overall program?
School you're applying for. However, when it comes to the non-compliance, if you have multiple cohorts, that can ding you for, if it's at one school, that can ding your whole program.
Any other questions before Vic moves forward? These are good clarifying questions for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question. This is Amy here. I'm just doing this over the phone, so I can't see the slides. I have a question about program cards. And I got the email that said it's not considered best practice anymore, and we're in compliance this year, but we don't know about future years. And so my question is it worth even taking the time to write the grant that might be not allowed in the future?
Well, one of the things right now is the feds are working on revising the guidance that previously allowed collecting of fees. And already there's a lot of states that prohibit the charging of fees for the 21st century programs, and one of them is our neighbor in Nebraska. So, I can't say what's going to happen, but it's the answer that I have is community partners and developing those will many times provide you with the volunteers, the experiences for field trips and enrichment activities, and even provide you with, funding to a much larger degree than charging fees ever would. And we've already had a couple of programs that in the past charged fees that are no longer charging fees as they develop enough community partners to replace that as a potential for funding. So I think the handwriting is on the wall. The state of Iowa cannot, make guarantees.
And do you think, does it matter at all that where the school district writes a grant, we don't collect the fees, but our partner collects fees?
Well, it's not going to. This is going to be if it's a 21st century program. Whoever is collecting the fees, if in the future it becomes something that's not allowable, it'll just be not allowable, either by the district or the community partner.
Right. Yeah, and we used to we didn't collect fees in the past, but we could only afford about 30, 40 kids. So that's why we blended and then we're able to serve more. But okay, so you can't really tell me yes or no.
Because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
And right now it's in the statute, so we're allowing it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, right now, when I started, we were only serving 6,000 kids. We're serving 17,000 now because of community partners, not because the feds have given us that much more money. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I know in Iowa City, that's how we got summer up and going, was because of community partners. With ACC Pearson, but then we were asked by the foundation not to try and get money anymore because they went in a different direction from after school to technology. So it's hard when your hands are kind of tied to about reaching out because of a district decision. So.
Yep, that's another encumbrance.
Oh.
And I have some of those same things at the state level that prohibit me from doing some things that I think would help.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any more questions?
I don't see any on the chat.
Okay. So now these are questions about office referrals and kids getting the snack. Again, these are covered under ESSA, and I really think that this is going to help some of our established programs to show that they're doing a good job for kids. A lot of times I go on a visit and I would see some great things, and then I'd see the application and I'd say, I didn't see this, and this in there. So I think asking these questions are going to be a good thing, and as we move forward with this knowledge that these are the things that we're asking programs to do, it'll be more established, and there will be a better understanding. And I think that doing these things helps illustrate a high quality program. And the overwhelming majority of our programs in Iowa are high quality. The people are in this to help kids, and it makes me very happy to be overseeing this program. And we've got other areas that they're coming to us and asking, you know, how are you guys getting these results with the kids? And, you know, some of the stuff is very, very simple, but it's all based on, you know, caring for their needs. And if you look at this, there's an understanding of the whole child in these questions. Okay, then we're asking about parent engagement meetings and asking about field trips and about community partners. So these are all things that are going to help you have a good program that's sustainable. That's another thing too, that sustainability on these programs is very important. And you know, how many times since I've been doing this program, I think it was at least 3 times they've tried to completely eliminate our funding. The stronger our relationship is with community partners, the more resilient we are to any kind of stuff that goes on with the feds. And then the final part is from our grant agreement. If you read that grant agreement, and you guys, most of you should have just got those last week, there's a section called performance monitoring that states are required to do, and we tell you right up front what we're checking. And on there, we have the attendance goal, so it's 70% by the first year and 80% by year 3. And other states have much higher goals than that. I was just looking at Nebraska, and I think they borrowed that from us, but then they made it a little more stringent. They go up to year 2, I think, to 85%, and then I think they go up even higher. And they're not the only state. There's a lot of states with similar things. We've, in that grant language, we ask you to enter your data in to the data system. We ask you to do your local evaluation, and then we ask for you to participate in best practice site visits and the PD that we do, and the committee work. So, you know, it's contractual language that, you know, if you don't want to participate on this, you probably shouldn't sign the grant agreement. But, you know, we're not going to ding you for missing a meeting occasionally because, you know, working with kids, things happen. But we've got a few that hardly ever attend, and this is going to be a wake-up call. Any questions? Right, and you know, a couple years ago they started with requiring the states to do risk assessment, and we've been easing into this, you know. That's one of the things that we've been doing since I came aboard, is following the federal rules, and it's made a big difference. We've gone from the feds told us we couldn't release any money until we fixed our problems, to now Iowa is an example for other states. And um, every month there's at least one state contacting me and saying, how are you doing things in Iowa? And the feds refer them. So that's a good place to be. But even the way we do risk assessment, we try to minimize the impact. Most of the states have it where you're going to do a risk assessment report every year, and some of them do more than one a year, and you have to send it in. Ours is embedded in the way we do business. So every quarter you're sending us your attendance, and you're sending us in those general ledgers. I actually do review those, and once in a while I find something, and I'll respond to you if I do, so that we can get on the correct page. And the big reason too, think about this, I'm trying to keep you out of trouble with federal rules and regulations. And because I don't want to go down that road with anyone. And when it comes to the finance stuff, I might see a couple of things and say, hey, let's back this out. And if you want me to, I can always bring in one of our accountants, but they generally find a lot more things than I do. So it's to your advantage to work with me and get these things resolved quickly. So we've got a pretty good system, I think, with risk assessment. I try to do it before I put out an award as much as possible. Now, here's another example. In New Jersey, they don't do any risk assessment. They just give out the awards, and then the first year they come out and take away money. They say, well, yeah, you don't have enough kids. We're going to cut your award 25%, 30%. Now, they have to have a much larger staff over there to be doing that. I like to have consistency in the funding. So once you've got your award for me, it's going to be pretty stable, unless you did something like if half of the kids aren't showing up, So I think our system in Iowa is pretty fair compared to others. And I usually at the director meetings in the spring, I'll show you some things that other states are doing, and just to let you know that trying to be as fair as possible. Now, here's another new thing in the application. With the certification, your superintendent and your principal is now, they're going to sign an affidavit, which gives us a little more legal authority when they say, yeah, those numbers are correct. And that little thing came from our attorneys, so. Yep. I've been doing a lot of